In the middle of a room full of investors, a young billionaire collapses under the weight of power and expectations. Silence turns to chaos, until a child crosses the hall and does the impossible. Her unexpected gesture not only saves a life, but triggers an irreversible change. She was only the daughter of the humble cleaning lady. What the billionaire does next is surprising. The air in the penthouse conference room of the Sterling Technologies building in San Francisco was electric with anticipation. 50 of the world's most influential investors sat in plush leather chairs, their eyes fixed on the man who had revolutionized artificial intelligence over the past decade. Ethan Sterling, at just 35, had become Silicon Valley's golden child, amassing a fortune that had earned him the title of America's youngest self-made billionaire. The merger we're discussing today isn't just about market dominance, Ethan said, his voice steady despite having consumed nothing but coffee and anxiety medication for the past 48 hours. It's about creating technology that will fundamentally transform healthcare as we know it. He clicked to the next slide, revealing projections that made several investors nod appreciatively. The Sterling Meditech merger would be the largest in tech history, valued at over $120 billion. Ethan had worked 18 months for this moment, sacrificing sleep, nutrition, and his already fragile personal relationships. Our AI systems will be able to predict disease patterns before symptoms manifest, potentially saving millions of lives, he continued, loosening his tie slightly as the room suddenly felt warmer. The data suggests we could reduce misdiagnoses by 67% in the first year alone. Ethan's vision blurred momentarily. He blinked hard, attributing the dizziness to exhaustion and the cocktail of stimulants and anti-anxiety medications he'd been taking to maintain his punishing schedule. His assistant, Margot, glanced at him with concern from the side of the room, but he waved her off with a subtle gesture. "We've secured preliminary FDA approval for the diagnostic platform," he said, his words beginning to slur almost imperceptibly. "And our trials have shown—" The room began to spin. Ethan gripped the podium, his knuckles white. The faces before him melted into a watercolor of expressions: concern, confusion, alarm. He tried to continue, but his legs gave way beneath him. The last thing he heard was the collective gasp of 50 billionaires witnessing their potential investment collapse, along with his body. In the ensuing chaos, no one noticed the small figure that slipped through the emergency doors that had been propped open by a cleaning cart. 7-year-old Lily Martinez had been quietly reading a medical book in the maintenance closet, while her mother, Rosa, cleaned the executive bathrooms. The commotion had drawn her curiosity. "He needs help!" someone shouted. "Call 911!" another voice commanded, but no one moved. These were people accustomed to giving orders, not performing emergency response. They stood frozen, their collective net worth approaching $1 trillion, yet utterly helpless in this moment of human crisis. Lily approached without hesitation, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor. She knelt beside Ethan's unconscious form, her small hands moving with surprising certainty. "He's breathing, but his pulse is fast and weak," she announced in clear, unchildlike terms. "Someone needs to elevate his legs above heart level to improve blood flow to his brain. And loosen his tie and collar. He needs unrestricted airflow." The room fell silent as the child took command. A silver-haired venture capitalist finally stepped forward, following her instructions to lift Ethan's legs. Margot rushed to loosen his tie. "Has he been eating or drinking properly?" Lily asked, looking directly at Margot. I don't think so," Margot stammered. "He's been working around the clock for weeks. He needs fluids immediately," Lily said. "And when the paramedics come, tell them to check for drug interactions. Sometimes medicines that help alone can hurt when mixed together." As if summoned by her words, EMTs burst through the door with a stretcher. They paused momentarily, surprised to find a child directing the emergency response. The lead paramedic quickly assessed the situation and nodded approvingly at Lily. "Good work, kiddo. We've got it from here." Rosa appeared in the doorway, her face flushing with embarrassment when she saw her daughter in the center of attention. "Lily, what are you doing?" "I'm so sorry," she said to the room at large, hurrying to retrieve her child. "Your daughter may have saved this man's life," the paramedic said as they transferred Ethan to the stretcher. She knew exactly what to do. As they wheeled Ethan toward the elevator, his eyes fluttered open briefly. Through the haze, he saw not the concerned faces of his business associates, but the steady gaze of a small girl with intelligent eyes and a determined expression. Their glances held for just a moment before his consciousness slipped away again. Margot approached Rosa, who was now clutching Lily's hand tightly. "I'm going to the hospital with Mr. Sterling. Can I have your contact information? He'll want to thank your daughter when he recovers." Rosa hesitated, her experience having taught her to be invisible in the worlds of the wealthy. "That's not necessary. We were just doing what anyone would do." "Not anyone," Margot insisted, handing Rosa a business card. "Please call this number tomorrow. Mr. Sterling would be very disappointed if he couldn't express his gratitude personally." In the aftermath of Ethan's collapse, the meeting disbanded in disarray. Investors whispered about the stability of Sterling Technologies without its visionary leader. Would the merger proceed? What did this mean for their investments? But in a small apartment in the Mission District that evening, a different conversation was taking place. "Where did you learn those things, Miha?" Rosa asked, as she prepared a simple dinner of beans and rice. Lily shrugged, turning the page of her medical textbook. "From my books. And from watching videos online at the library. The human body is like a machine, Mama. When something goes wrong, there are usually signs and steps to fix it." Rosa studied her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Ever since Lily's father had abandoned them before her birth, Rosa had worked double shifts as a cleaner to provide for her precocious child. Lily had taught herself to read at 4 and had developed an insatiable curiosity about medicine and the human body. "That man today, he's very important, very rich," Rosa said carefully. "Money doesn't make his body work any differently than ours," Lily replied matter-of-factly. "His brain still needs oxygen. His heart still needs to pump blood. He still needs water and food and rest." Rosa smiled, amazed once again by her daughter's wisdom. "You're right, Miha. But people like him and people like us, we live in different worlds." "Maybe those worlds aren't supposed to be so separate," Lily said thoughtfully, looking out their window at the city lights glimmering against the darkening sky. "Maybe sometimes they're supposed to come together." Neither of them could have imagined how prophetic those words would prove to be. At San Francisco General Hospital, doctors confirmed what Lily had suspected. Ethan Sterling was suffering from severe dehydration, malnutrition, and dangerous interactions between the prescription stimulants and anti-anxiety medications he'd been taking to maintain his punishing work schedule. As he lay in the private room, connected to IV fluids and monitors, the empire he'd built continued without him. Board members making calls, PR teams crafting statements, and investors reconsidering their positions. For the first time in years, Ethan Sterling was completely alone, without screens, schedules, or strategic objectives. In the sterile quiet of his hospital room, the emptiness of his existence became deafening. He had acquired everything a man could want, except for someone who cared whether he lived or died, for reasons beyond a business valuation. His phone buzzed with hundreds of notifications, but one message from Margot stood out. "Found the little girl who helped you. Her name is Lily. Her mother cleans our offices. Should I arrange a thank you gift?" Ethan stared at the ceiling, recalling the clear, confident eyes of the child who had taken command when all the power players in his world had stood paralyzed. "No gift," he typed back. "I want to thank her myself. Set it up." What he couldn't articulate even to himself was a strange sense that this encounter wasn't coincidental, that perhaps his carefully constructed world had needed to collapse for something more meaningful to begin. 3 days later, Ethan sat on the edge of his hospital bed, dressed in a fresh suit that Margot had delivered. His discharge papers were signed, but he felt oddly reluctant to leave. The forced pause had been his first in years. "The board is eager for your return," Margot said, scrolling through his schedule on her tablet. "They've managed to calm the investors for now, but everyone's waiting for your next move regarding the merger." Ethan nodded absently, his attention drawn to the door, where a hesitant knock interrupted their conversation. Dr. Miranda Chen, the attending physician, entered with a stern expression. "Mr. Sterling, before you leave, we need to discuss your condition." "I'm fine," Ethan said dismissively. "Just overworked. I'll take a weekend off." Dr. Chen's expression didn't soften. What happened wasn't simply fatigue. Your body was shutting down systematically. The combination of sleep deprivation, malnutrition, dehydration, and those medication, she shook her head. Another few hours, and we might have been having a very different conversation. I understand, Ethan said, not meeting her eyes. No, I don't think you do, Dr. Chen persisted. Your blood work shows chronic deficiencies. Your heart is showing early signs of stress. You're 35 going on 55. She paused, searching for words that might penetrate his wall of indifference. The little girl who helped you. She recognized what the room full of business geniuses couldn't see. That you're human, not a machine. At the mention of Lily, Ethan's expression changed. I'd like to meet her. Properly this time. As it happens, Dr. Chen said with a slight smile, she's been volunteering in our pediatric ward, reading to patients. Her mother works in the hospital cafeteria part-time. They're here now. Minutes later, Ethan found himself walking toward the brightly painted pediatric wing, feeling oddly nervous. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the prospect of thanking a 7-year-old left him uncharacteristically uncertain. He paused in the doorway of the children's activity room. Lily sat cross-legged on a colorful rug, surrounded by young patients as she read aloud from an anatomy book, explaining complex concepts in terms the children could understand. Her voice was clear and confident, her small finger tracing diagrams as she spoke. And that's why your heart is actually a muscle, not just a shape we draw. It's the strongest muscle in your whole body, and it never stops working, not even when you're asleep. A nurse noticed Ethan and whispered something to Lily, whose eyes widened as she looked up. She carefully closed her book and excused herself from the circle. "Hello, Mr. Sterling," she said formally, extending her hand as if she were in a business meeting. "I'm glad to see you're feeling better." Ethan found himself smiling as he shook her tiny hand. "I have you to thank for that, Lily. The doctors told me what you did." She shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what the books say. Nobody was moving, and you needed help." A woman appeared behind Lily, wiping her hands nervously on her cafeteria uniform. Rosa Martinez's face was a study in maternal concern and embarrassment. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Rosa, Lily's mother. I'm so sorry if she disturbed your meeting. She knows she's not supposed to leave the maintenance areas when she comes to work with me." "Please don't apologize," Ethan said quickly. "Your daughter quite literally saved my life. I wanted to thank you both properly." He hesitated, suddenly aware of how hollow material gratitude would seem. Would you both join me for dinner tonight? There's a restaurant I know." Rosa's eyes widened with alarm. "Oh no, that's not necessary. We couldn't possibly." "Please," Ethan interrupted, surprising himself with the urgency in his voice. "It would mean a lot to me." Before Rosa could refuse again, Lily spoke up. "We could have dinner with Mr. Sterling, Mama. He needs to eat regular meals now. The doctor said so, right?" Ethan laughed, genuinely amused for the first time in months. "She's right. Doctor's orders. I need supervision, apparently." Rosa looked from her daughter to the billionaire, clearly torn between ingrained caution and her daughter's determination. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. "Just a simple dinner. Nothing fancy." That evening, Ethan's driver picked them up from their modest apartment. Rosa had changed into her only dress, a navy blue cotton garment she wore for church, while Lily wore a clean school uniform, her hair neatly braided. They sat stiffly in the luxury car, Lily peering out the window with undisguised curiosity, while Rosa clasped her hands tightly in her lap. To their surprise, the car didn't stop at an exclusive restaurant, but at Ethan's penthouse atop Russian Hill. The space was minimalist and impersonal, like an architectural magazine spread rather than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of the bay, the Golden Gate Bridge glowing amber in the distance. "I hope you don't mind," Ethan said as he led them inside. "Restaurants are always a spectacle for me. I thought this might be more comfortable." A private chef had prepared dinner, which was laid out on a table set for 3. Ethan had specifically requested simple, nutritious food, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, and brown rice, a stark departure from his usual diet of coffee and protein bars. As they ate, the initial awkwardness gradually dissolved. Lily peppered Ethan with questions about his health, his diet, his sleep patterns, interrogating him like a miniature physician. Rather than finding it intrusive, Ethan found himself answering honestly, admitting vulnerabilities he'd concealed even from himself. "Why do you work so hard that you forget to eat?" Lily asked bluntly, spooning vegetable soup into her mouth. Ethan paused, realizing he'd never actually considered the question. "I suppose because there's always more to do, more problems to solve, more innovations to create. But if you get sick, you can't solve any problems," Lily pointed out logically. Rosa gave her daughter a gentle, reproving look. "Lily, Mr. Sterling's work is important. Sometimes adults have responsibilities that are complicated." "Actually," Ethan said, "she's absolutely right. I've been treating my body like it's disposable." He looked at the child with newfound respect. "How did you get so interested in medicine, Lily?" The girl's eyes lit up. "I want to be a doctor someday. I read everything I can find. The librarians at the public library help me. And sometimes when Mama cleans at the medical buildings, the doctors let me look at their books. Lily has always been special," Rosa said softly. Even as a baby, she noticed everything. By 4, she was reading medical pamphlets in doctors' waiting rooms. As the evening progressed, Ethan found himself increasingly fascinated by this extraordinary child and her resilient mother. Rosa gradually relaxed enough to share glimpses of their life, the struggles of single parenthood, working multiple cleaning jobs, and nurturing Lily's remarkable intellect despite limited resources. "She's been accepted to the gifted program at her school," Rosa said with quiet pride, "but the materials they need," she trailed off, unwilling to complain. Later, as they prepared to leave, Ethan disappeared briefly into his home office. He returned with a stack of medical reference books, carefully selected from his company's research library. "These might be more interesting than my financial reports," he said, presenting them to Lily, whose eyes widened with delight. "Really? I can borrow these," she gasped, running her fingers reverently over the embossed covers. "They're yours to keep," Ethan said, feeling an unfamiliar warmth at her reaction. "Consider it a thank you gift." As his driver prepared to take them home, Ethan found himself reluctant to end the evening. "I'm launching a new healthcare initiative," he said suddenly. "I could use a consultant with your expertise, Lily. Perhaps you and your mother would consider visiting again." Rosa looked uncertain, but Lily nodded enthusiastically. "We could help you stay healthy too," she offered. "You need someone to remind you to eat lunch and take breaks and go to bed on time." Ethan laughed, but there was something poignant in it. "I'm a grown man who apparently needs reminders to perform basic human functions." "How pathetic is that?" "Not pathetic," Lily said seriously. "Just lonely. Lonely people forget to take care of themselves because nobody's watching." Her words hit Ethan with unexpected force, exposing a truth he'd buried beneath ambition and achievement. In that moment, something shifted. A door opening between worlds that had seemed impossibly distant only days before. Back at Sterling Technologies the following Monday, Ethan surprised his executive team by announcing a new direction. The merger would proceed, but with a significant modification. A substantial portion of resources would be directed toward developing treatments for rare pediatric diseases. "We've been focusing on profit margins when we should be focusing on impact," he told the stunned boardroom. "Our AI capabilities could revolutionize how we identify and treat conditions that affect the most vulnerable patients, children with rare genetic disorders." Jeffrey Reynolds, Sterling's chief financial officer, leaned forward with concern. "Ethan, the shareholders aren't going to—" "The shareholders will understand that this isn't just altruism," Ethan interrupted. "It's strategic vision. Breakthrough treatments for rare diseases often lead to broader applications. Besides," he added with unusual conviction, "some things matter more than quarterly projections." As the executives filed out, muttering among themselves about their CEO's unexpected pivot, Margot approached Ethan's desk. "This wouldn't have anything to do with that little girl, would it?" she asked knowingly. Ethan didn't immediately answer, his gaze drifting to the San Francisco skyline outside his window. "She saw something everyone else missed, Margot. Not just my medical emergency, something bigger." He turned to his assistant with newfound clarity. "I've built an empire by solving problems with technology, but maybe I've been solving the wrong problems." That evening, Ethan called Rosa. "I'd like to offer Lily a kind of internship," he explained. "Nothing formal, just visits to our research division. We have scientists working on medical applications of AI who could nurture her interests. Rosa's hesitation was palpable, even through the phone. Mr. Sterling, your generosity is overwhelming, but why? Why would someone like you take such an interest in us? It was a fair question, one for which Ethan didn't have a practiced answer. Because, he said finally, your daughter reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That underneath all the technology and business and wealth, we're human, and humans need more than success to survive. After a long pause, Rosa agreed to a single visit. Neither she nor Ethan could have predicted how that simple decision would change all their lives irrevocably in the months to come. Over the next few months, a routine developed. Twice weekly, Ethan's driver would collect Lily from school and bring her to Sterling Technologies' research wing, where she would spend hours absorbing knowledge from the scientists and doctors working on medical AI applications. Rosa would join them after finishing her cleaning shift, often finding her daughter deep in conversation with researchers who had forgotten they were speaking to a child. For Ethan, these visits became anchors in his formerly chaotic schedule. He began blocking out time specifically to join Lily in the labs, watching with growing admiration as she asked questions that even seasoned professionals found thought-provoking. More surprisingly, he found himself adopting regular meals, reasonable work hours, and even occasional weekends off, changes his executive team attributed to his health scare, but which Ethan privately knew stemmed from Lily's matter-of-fact reminders. "You promised to eat lunch today," she would say, appearing at his office door with the determined expression of a tiny drill sergeant. "The brain uses 20% of all your energy. If you don't feed it properly, your decisions will be compromised." How could he argue with such perfect logic? On Sundays, Ethan began joining Lily and Rosa for simple outings, visits to museums, walks in Golden Gate Park, or afternoons at the public library where Lily was treated like royalty by the librarians who had nurtured her intellectual curiosity for years. He discovered the simple pleasure of casual conversations, of moving through the world as just another person rather than a billionaire CEO whose every action was scrutinized for business implications. For Rosa, the evolving relationship remained a source of conflicted emotions. She saw the positive influence Ethan had on Lily's education and opportunities. He had arranged for special tutoring, provided access to resources beyond their means, and shown genuine interest in her daughter's development. Yet the gulf between their worlds left her perpetually wary, waiting for the moment when his fascination would inevitably wane. "He's a good man, Mama," Lily insisted one evening as Rosa tucked her into bed. "He was just lost before." "Good people can still hurt you without meaning to, Mika," Rosa replied softly, "especially when they belong to a different world." "Maybe he doesn't belong there as much as everyone thinks," Lily said thoughtfully. He smiles more now, and he remembers to eat lunch almost every day." Rosa couldn't help but smile at her daughter's priorities. But later that night, as she folded laundry in their small living room, doubts resurfaced. What would happen when Ethan Sterling inevitably returned to his real life, the world of billion-dollar deals and exclusive social circles? The pain of abandonment was not unfamiliar to Rosa. Lily's father had made promises too, before disappearing when responsibility became inconvenient. Yet despite her reservations, even Rosa couldn't deny the transformation in Ethan. The arrogant, disconnected executive was giving way to someone more present, more engaged with the world around him, and her daughter was flourishing under his mentorship in ways that Rosa, for all her devotion, couldn't provide alone. Meanwhile, at Sterling Technologies, Ethan's new direction was creating waves. The company's research division had pivoted significant resources toward pediatric medicine, specifically focusing on developing AI diagnostic tools for rare genetic disorders. This shift had accelerated following a particular conversation with Lily. "Why do some kids get sick with diseases doctors can't figure out?" she had asked while examining a molecular modeling display. "Sometimes mutations in DNA cause conditions so rare that most doctors never see them," a researcher had explained. "It might take years to get a correct diagnosis. But your computers could learn all the rare diseases at once, right?" Lily had persisted. "They could see patterns humans might miss." That simple observation had crystallized Ethan's vision. Sterling Technologies launched the Helios initiative, named for the sun god who brought light to darkness, dedicated to creating an AI diagnostic platform specifically for rare pediatric conditions. The initiative would provide the technology free to children's hospitals worldwide, regardless of their patients' financial circumstances. Not everyone embraced this new direction. At the quarterly board meeting, tensions erupted into open conflict. This Helios project is bleeding resources that should be directed toward our core business, Jeffrey Reynolds argued, projecting slides showing diverted research hours and funding. The shareholders are getting restless, Ethan. They're questioning your judgment. The Helios initiative isn't charity, it's innovation, Ethan countered calmly. The pattern recognition capabilities we're developing have applications far beyond pediatric medicine. We are creating entirely new frameworks for AI diagnosis. And since when did rare childhood diseases become your passion? Asked Diane Mercer, a board member with significant investment in the company. This seems like a rather personal pivot. The implication hung in the air. Rumors had begun circulating about Ethan's relationship with a cleaning woman and her precocious daughter. Nothing scandalous, Ethan's interactions with Rosa remained strictly appropriate to us, but the notion that Sterling Technologies' visionary leader was suddenly being influenced by a 7-year-old girl raised eyebrows throughout Silicon Valley. After the meeting, Margot handed Ethan a news tablet. "You should see this," she said grimly. The headline read, "Sterling Strange. New direction, Billionaire's health crisis, leads to questionable business decisions." The article questioned whether Ethan's collapse had affected his mental judgment, citing anonymous sources concerned about his uncharacteristic behavior and association with unqualified individuals in medical planning. Ethan's jaw tightened as he read. "Find out who's feeding this narrative," he told Margot. "This isn't random speculation." The source wasn't difficult to identify. Dr. Lawrence Bennett, chief of pediatric medicine at San Francisco Memorial Hospital, and a renowned researcher in his own right, had been publicly critical of the Helios initiative from its announcement. In interviews and medical conferences, he questioned the ethics of allowing tech companies and their algorithm-driven machines to intrude on the practice of medicine. "There's a dangerous trend of Silicon Valley billionaires thinking they can solve complex medical problems overnight," Bennett told a medical journal. "These tech entrepreneurs have no medical training, no understanding of the physician-patient relationship, and no business inserting themselves and their disruptive technologies into sensitive pediatric care." What the articles didn't mention was that Bennett's own research institute had been developing a competing diagnostic platform, one that would be licensed to hospitals at considerable cost. The Helios initiative threatened not only his professional authority, but his financial interests as well. The opposition grew more organized when Bennett formed the Medical Ethics in Technology Coalition, a group of physicians and researchers publicly dedicated to maintaining proper boundaries between Silicon Valley and medical practice. Their first target was the Helios initiative, which they characterized as experimental technology being developed by non-medical personnel with the potential to endanger vulnerable children. Ethan found himself in unfamiliar territory. Throughout his career, business opponents had attacked his companies, his products, his market strategies, but never his character or motivations. The suggestion that the Helios initiative was somehow exploitative struck at something newly vulnerable in him. "Don't let them distract you," Margot advised, seeing his distress. "This is just competitive tactics." "It's more than that," Ethan replied. "Bennett is respected in the medical community. If he convinces hospitals not to adopt Helios, children who could be helped won't be." That evening, Ethan arrived at Rosa's apartment for their now regular Friday dinner with uncharacteristic weariness. Lily immediately noticed. "You look tired," she observed as he helped Rosa set the table. "Did you skip lunch again?" "No, I ate," Ethan assured her with a small smile. "Just dealing with some people who don't understand what we're trying to do with Helios." "You mean Dr. Bennett," Lily said matter-of-factly, surprising both adults. "I heard the scientists talking about him. They said he's spreading lies about our project." "Our project?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, momentarily distracted from his concerns. Well, it was my idea, Lily said with the unself-conscious confidence of childhood, even if I'm not old enough to write the code yet. Rosa shot Ethan an apologetic look, but he laughed, a genuine, unrehearsed sound that seemed to lighten the atmosphere. You're absolutely right, he agreed. It was your idea, and it's a brilliant one. Dr. Bennett and his friends just don't like change, especially when it comes from outsiders. After dinner, when Lily was absorbed in one of her medical texts, Rosa approached Ethan in the small kitchen where he was helping with dishes, another new habit that would have shocked anyone who knew him in his previous life. "This doctor who's attacking your work," she said quietly. "Is he dangerous to you?" Ethan was touched by her concern. "Not to me personally. Just to what we're trying to build." Rosa nodded, wiping a plate with methodical precision. "In my experience, powerful men don't like being challenged, especially by those they consider beneath them." "Is that how you see me?" Ethan asked, suddenly curious. "As a powerful man who can't handle being challenged?" Rosa met his gaze directly. "I used to. Now I'm not so sure." She hesitated before continuing. "You've changed since that day in the conference room. But this world you're bringing Lily into, our world and yours mixing together, it has consequences I worry about." "I would never let anything happen to Lily," Ethan said, surprised by the fierceness in his own voice. "I know you believe that," Rosa replied, "but you're fighting other powerful people now. And when powerful people fight, it's usually the vulnerable who get hurt." Her words haunted Ethan that night as he returned to his empty penthouse. For the first time, he fully appreciated the risk Rosa was taking by allowing him into their lives. The trust she placed in him, despite every reason for caution, humbled him in a way his business achievements never had. The following week, Ethan received an unexpected visitor at his office. Dr. Lawrence Bennett had requested a meeting, citing professional courtesy. Curious about this direct approach, Ethan agreed. Bennett was older than Ethan had expected, mid-60s with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to deference. He declined Ethan's offer of refreshments with a tight smile. "I'll be direct, Mr. Sterling," Bennett began. "Your Helios initiative, while no doubt well-intentioned, is creating significant concern in the medical community. So I've gathered from your public statements," Ethan replied evenly. "What you may not understand is the complexity of pediatric diagnosis. AI systems, no matter how sophisticated, lack the human judgment developed through years of clinical experience. That's precisely why Helios is designed as a physician's tool, not a replacement," Ethan countered. "It identifies patterns and possibilities a human doctor might miss, especially with rare conditions." Bennett leaned forward, his expression grave. "My concern goes beyond the technology itself. There are rumors about your unusual development process, that you're allowing a child, a cleaning woman's daughter, to influence medical research priorities." Ethan felt a surge of anger, but kept his expression neutral. "I wasn't aware that good ideas were restricted by age or social status, Doctor." "This isn't about social prejudice," Bennett said with visible irritation. "It's about proper protocols and expertise. The medical community has established pathways for research and innovation that ensure patient safety. Pathways that have failed thousands of children with rare disorders who wait years for accurate diagnoses," Ethan pointed out. "Sometimes the established pathways need disruption." The conversation continued in this vein, a verbal chess match with neither man conceding ground. Finally, Bennett stood to leave. "A friendly word of advice, Mr. Sterling," he said, his tone belying the description. "Technology comes and goes. Reputations in medicine are built over decades. Consider carefully whether this project is worth the bridges you're burning." After Bennett left, Ethan sat motionless at his desk, processing the thinly veiled threat. For the first time in his career, he found himself questioning not his strategy but his conviction. Was he truly qualified to enter this arena? Was he putting his own pride above responsible innovation? The doubts followed him to his regular Sunday outing with Lily and Rosa. They had planned a visit to the California Academy of Sciences, but Ethan was distracted, responding to Lily's excited observations with absent nods. Finally, at the planetarium, as they stared up at the projected cosmos, Lily tugged his sleeve. "What's wrong?" she asked directly. "You're thinking so hard I can almost hear it." Ethan smiled despite himself. Just work problems. Is it about the Helios project? Are you worried it won't help sick kids like you want it to? The perceptiveness of her question caught him off guard. Something like that, he admitted. There are people who think I don't know enough to make this work. That I should stay in my lane. Lily considered this seriously. When I first wanted to read medical books, the librarian said they were for grown-ups. She gave me baby books about the body instead. Her small face hardened with remembered determination. So I taught myself the hard words, until I could understand the real books. Sometimes you have to prove you belong somewhere before people will make room for you. Ethan stared at the child beside him, humbled once again by her wisdom. You're right, he said softly. We'll just have to prove Helios works. What neither of them could have anticipated was how personal that proof would soon become, or how their intertwined lives would face a challenge far greater than professional opposition. The first sign was so subtle that Rosa almost missed it. During their Saturday breakfast ritual, Lily's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her orange juice, causing a small spill on the worn tablecloth. Sorry, Mama, she said, quickly grabbing a napkin. Rosa might have thought nothing of it. Children spill things all the time, except that similar small incidents had been occurring with increasing frequency over the past few weeks. Dropped pencils, difficulty buttoning her school uniform, brief moments when Lily seemed to lose her train of thought mid-sentence, unusual for a child whose mind normally raced ahead of her words. Are you feeling okay, Mija? Rosa asked, placing a hand on her daughter's forehead out of maternal instinct. I'm fine, Lily insisted. Just tired from studying late. But she wasn't fine. The following Tuesday, during her regular visit to Sterling Technologies, Lily collapsed while walking through the research lab. One moment she was asking questions about genetic sequencing. The next she was on the floor, her small body seized by convulsions. Ethan was in a meeting when his phone lit up with Margot's emergency code. He excused himself immediately, fear gripping him when he heard the words Lily and medical emergency in the same sentence. By the time he reached the research wing, paramedics were loading her into an ambulance, Rosa clutching her daughter's hand with terror etched on her face. I'm coming with you, Ethan said without hesitation, already calling his driver to follow the ambulance. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of hospital corridors, hushed medical consultations, and the beeping of monitoring equipment. Preliminary tests were inconclusive. The seizure had stopped, but Lily remained unusually lethargic, her normally sharp eyes dulled by whatever was attacking her system. Dr. Miranda Chen, the same physician who had treated Ethan months earlier, took personal charge of Lily's case. We're running comprehensive panels, she told them in the small consultation room. Blood work, neurological assessments, genetic screening. Given her symptoms, the progressive fine motor issues Rosa has noticed, the cognitive fluctuations, and now the seizure, we need to rule out several possibilities. What kind of possibilities? Ethan asked, his tech entrepreneur's mind automatically seeking data points, patterns, solutions. Dr. Chen's expression remained professionally neutral. It could be several things. An infection, a neurological condition, or possibly a metabolic disorder. Rosa, who had barely spoken since the ambulance ride, finally found her voice. Just tell us what's happening to my daughter, she pleaded. I wish I could give you definitive answers right now, Dr. Chen said gently. But rare conditions often present diagnostic challenges. We need to be thorough. For 3 days, Lily underwent a battery of tests. Ethan never left the hospital, working remotely from a corner of Lily's room when she slept, reading to her from her beloved medical books when she was awake. Rosa alternated between fierce maternal protectiveness and moments of devastating vulnerability, once breaking down in Ethan's arms in the hospital corridor. She's all I have, she whispered against his shoulder. My whole world. She's going to be okay, Ethan promised, wishing desperately that his billions could guarantee it. We'll find the best specialists, whatever she needs. On the 4th day, Dr. Chen requested a meeting with both of them. Her grave expression sent ice through Ethan's veins even before she spoke. The genetic panel has identified something concerning, she began carefully. Lily shows markers consistent with Kaplan-Morrison syndrome. Rosa looked blank, but Ethan's breath caught. As part of his research for the Helios initiative, he'd become familiar with numerous rare disorders. Kaplan-Morrison was among the rarest, a progressive genetic disorder affecting neurological function, typically manifesting in childhood with subtle motor difficulties before advancing to more severe symptoms. What does that mean? Rosa asked, her voice small. Can you fix it? Dr. Chen's compassionate professionalism couldn't fully mask her sadness. Kaplan-Morrison is extremely rare. There are fewer than 200 documented cases worldwide. It affects the body's ability to produce certain essential enzymes, which leads to progressive neurological symptoms. But there are treatments? Ethan pressed, already mentally cataloging the medical research institutions he could contact, the specialists he could fly. Currently, treatments are limited to symptom management, Dr. Chen admitted. There's experimental work being done, but nothing has progressed to approved therapies. The words hit Rosa like physical blows. What happens without treatment? She asked, though her expression suggested she already feared the answer. The condition progresses at different rates in different patients, Dr. Chen said carefully. But without intervention, neurological function continues to deteriorate over time. How much time? Rosa's question hung in the air, terrible in its simplicity. Dr. Chen hesitated. In most documented cases, patients experience significant decline within 2 to 5 years of symptom onset. The consultation room fell silent. Through the window, they could see Lily in her hospital bed, absorbed in one of her books, seemingly unaware that her future was being discussed in clinical, devastating terms. I need to talk to my daughter, Rosa said finally, standing with quiet dignity despite the tears streaming down her face. After she left, Ethan turned to Dr. Chen. There has to be something. Experimental treatments, clinical trials, compassionate use protocols, anything. There's limited research because the condition is so rare, Dr. Chen explained. A few centers are exploring enzyme replacement therapies, but they're years from clinical application. Years she doesn't have, Ethan said, a cold determination replacing his initial shock. What about the research team at Johns Hopkins? Or Mayo Clinic's genetic therapy program? Mr. Sterling, Dr. Chen said gently, I understand your impulse to fix this, but even with unlimited resources, some medical challenges can't be solved immediately. The science simply isn't there yet. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. His mind was already calculating, planning, marshalling the considerable forces at his disposal. If existing science couldn't help Lily, he would push the boundaries of what was possible. That evening, after Lily had fallen asleep, Ethan found Rosa in the hospital's small chapel. She wasn't praying, just sitting in silence, her normally resolute posture crumpled with grief. I spoke with Dr. Chen about next steps, Ethan said, sitting beside her. There are options we can explore. Rosa looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. She told me the truth, Ethan. There are no real options. Just ways to make Lily comfortable while she couldn't finish the sentence. That's not acceptable, Ethan said with quiet intensity. The Helios initiative was just the beginning. I'm establishing a new research foundation specifically focused on Kaplan-Morrison and related disorders. We'll bring together the top minds in genetic medicine, provide whatever funding they need. Stop, Rosa interrupted, her voice stronger than he expected. This isn't one of your technology problems you can solve by throwing money at it. This is my daughter's life. That's exactly why we have to fight, Ethan insisted. With the resources I can commit. And what happens when your interest fades? Rosa challenged, months of suppressed fears finally surfacing. When the challenge is solved or becomes too difficult. When the next exciting project comes along, we'll still be here, Ethan. Lily will still be sick. Her words struck him like a physical blow. Is that what you think? That Lily and you are just projects to me? Rosa's expression softened slightly. I think you care about us. I believe that. But caring isn't the same as staying when things get unbearably hard. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said, reaching for her hand. I'm in this with both of you, for as long as you'll have me. Rosa didn't pull away, but doubt lingered in her eyes. You say that now, but you've never had to watch someone you love suffer without being able to fix it. It changes you. Then it will change me, Ethan said simply, but it won't make me leave. The next morning, Ethan set his plan in motion. He called an emergency meeting of Sterling Technologies' executive team to announce his indefinite leave of absence. The company would continue under the leadership of his COO, while Ethan devoted himself to establishing and running the newly created Lilly Foundation for Rare Pediatric Disorders. The boardroom erupted in protest. Jeffrey Reynolds was particularly vocal. "You're abandoning your responsibilities to shareholders for a personal crusade," he argued. "This isn't just irregular. It could be considered a breach of fiduciary duty." Ethan remained unmoved. "My voting shares give me control of strategic direction. That's not changing, but my priorities have." He surveyed the faces around the table, colleagues who suddenly seemed like strangers. Anyone who can't support this transition is welcome to tender their resignation. By that afternoon, news of Ethan's dramatic pivot had hit the financial press. Sterling Technologies' stock dropped 12% in hours. Analysts speculated about his mental state, citing the earlier collapse and now this emotional decision as evidence of instability. Dr. Bennett gave interviews questioning the ethics of channeling research dollars toward a single patient's condition. However tragic, Ethan ignored it all. Within days, he had assembled a preliminary research team, leased laboratory space near the hospital, and begun recruiting specialists in enzyme replacement therapy and genetic medicine. The Lilly Foundation took shape with remarkable speed, powered by Ethan's considerable resources and newfound sense of purpose. For Lilly, discharge from the hospital marked the beginning of a new reality. The precocious child who had devoured medical texts now found herself the subject of medical attention. Daily medications, weekly therapy sessions, and monthly evaluations became part of her routine. Yet her spirit remained remarkably resilient. "I'm a case study," she announced matter-of-factly to Ethan during one of his daily visits. "Just like in my books, except I get to help figure out the ending." Ethan marveled at her courage, even as he noticed the increasing frequency of her hand tremors and the effort it sometimes took her to find the right words. The race against her condition's progression added unbearable pressure to the Foundation's work. Dr. Chen had agreed to split her time between the hospital and the Foundation, serving as medical director. 3 weeks into their research, she requested an urgent meeting with Ethan. "We've identified a potential approach," she explained, spreading papers across the conference table. "A novel enzyme replacement therapy combined with a modified gene therapy delivery system. The theory is sound, but what?" Ethan pressed. "It's completely experimental. The FDA would never approve a human trial at this stage. We're at least a year of animal studies away from even approaching human safety protocols." "Lilly doesn't have a year," Ethan said flatly. Dr. Chen met his gaze directly. "I know, that's why I'm bringing this to you now, outside official channels. There's a possible path forward, but it exists in an ethical gray area. Compassionate use," Ethan surmised. "Emergency access for patients with life-threatening conditions when no alternatives exist. Even compassionate use protocols require preliminary safety data," Dr. Chen cautioned, "and approval from ethics committees." "Then we'll get it," Ethan said with determination, "whatever it takes." What it took was an unprecedented mobilization of resources and influence. Ethan leveraged every connection, called in every favor, and when necessary applied pressure through foundations that funded major research hospitals. He established a specialized medical advisory board, recruited internationally renowned experts, and personally flew to Washington to meet with FDA officials about accelerated review pathways. Throughout this whirlwind of activity, he remained a constant presence in Lily and Rosa's lives. He had moved them into a comfortable home near the hospital, not ostentatious, respecting Rosa's pride, but practical for Lily's care needs. Many evenings found him there for dinner, helping Lily with her increasingly difficult homework, or simply sitting with Rosa after Lily had gone to bed, offering quiet companionship in the face of their shared fear. One such evening, as they sat on the small porch watching the sunset, Rosa turned to him with unexpected vulnerability. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked softly. "Really?" Ethan considered the question carefully. At first it was gratitude, then admiration for Lily's mind, her spirit. But now, he struggled to articulate the transformation within himself. "Now it's because I can't imagine my life without both of you in it." Rosa studied his face in the fading light. "I've been waiting," she admitted. "Waiting for you to realize this is too hard, too messy. Waiting for you to return to your clean, orderly billionaire life. That life feels empty now. Ethan said simply. Like it belonged to someone else. And this doesn't? Playing house with a cleaning woman and her sick child. This is the only thing that's ever felt real, Ethan replied, surprising himself with the raw honesty of the words. Rosa's expression softened. For the first time since Lily's diagnosis, she allowed herself to lean against him, her head finding his shoulder as the sky darkened around them. Just as this fragile personal peace was forming, the professional battle intensified. Dr. Bennett's Medical Ethics Coalition filed a formal complaint with the Hospital Ethics Committee, challenging the accelerated protocol the Lilly Foundation was pursuing. This is preferential treatment based on wealth and influence, Bennett argued in a closed hearing. If this child weren't connected to Ethan Sterling, would we be bending established safety protocols? Are we creating a two-tiered system where experimental treatments are available only to those with billionaire benefactors? The Ethics Committee was divided. Some members were swayed by Bennett's arguments about process and precedent. Others recognized the Foundation's work as potentially groundbreaking for all patients with similar conditions. The deciding vote would come from Dr. Margaret Foster, the committee chair and a nationally respected bioethicist. The night before her decision, Ethan requested a private meeting. In her office, surrounded by medical texts and ethics journals, he made his case one final time. This isn't about special treatment for one child, he insisted. It's about accelerating progress that could help countless others. If we develop an effective approach for Kaplan-Morrison, the same principles could apply to dozens of related enzymatic disorders. Dr. Foster regarded him thoughtfully. Mr. Sterling, throughout my career, I've seen many powerful people try to circumvent medical protocols for personal reasons. But I've rarely seen someone redirect their entire life to address a systemic problem. Then you understand what we're trying to do, Ethan said hopefully. I understand your intentions, she replied carefully. But good intentions don't guarantee ethical outcomes. The protocols exist to protect vulnerable patients from becoming experimental subjects without proper safeguards. And what about protecting them from bureaucratic inertia? Ethan challenged. From dying while waiting for perfect data? Doctor. Foster sighed, the weight of the decision evident in her expression. I'll announce my determination tomorrow, but I want to ask you something first, not as a billionaire or a foundation director, but as a human being. What happens to your commitment, to this research, to this child, if the treatment fails? The question pierced straight to Ethan's core fears. It won't change anything, he said after a long pause. I'll still be there. For Lily. For Rosa. For however long they'll have me. As he left her office, Ethan realized with startling clarity that he had just made the most binding commitment of his life, one that transcended legal contracts, business obligations, or even the experimental treatment's outcome. Whatever happened next, there would be no returning to the man he had been before a 7-year-old girl saved his life in more ways than one. The decision came down on a rainy Tuesday morning. Dr. Foster, speaking to a packed conference room at San Francisco General Hospital, delivered a ruling that attempted to balance competing ethical principles. After careful consideration, the Ethics Committee has determined that the experimental protocol proposed by the Lilly Foundation meets the threshold for compassionate use authorization with conditions, she announced, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. The treatment must include enhanced monitoring protocols, full transparency of data, and the establishment of an independent safety board with authority to halt the process at any sign of adverse effects. Dr. Bennett, seated in the front row, visibly tensed. This sets a dangerous precedent, he objected immediately. You're allowing wealth and influence to circumvent established safety procedures. On the contrary, Dr. Foster countered calmly, we're establishing a framework that could help all patients with rare diseases. The Foundation has agreed that all protocols, methods, and results will be made freely available to the broader medical community. No patents, no proprietary claims. This could accelerate research for numerous conditions beyond this single case. For Ethan, seated beside Dr. Chen at the back of the room, The decision represented not victory but merely permission to begin the real fight. The experimental treatment for Lily would involve a complex regimen of enzyme replacement combined with targeted genetic therapy, an approach that carried significant risks alongside its potential benefits. Later that day, in Lily's cheerful bedroom decorated with science posters and stuffed animals, Ethan and Rosa faced the difficult task of explaining the treatment to Lily herself. Though only 7, her medical knowledge and personal stake demanded her involvement in the decision. "The medicine is experimental," Dr. Chen explained gently, sitting on the edge of Lily's bed. "That means we don't know exactly how well it will work or what side effects might happen." Lily nodded, her expression serious beyond her years. "Like when scientists test new things in laboratories." "Exactly," Dr. Chen confirmed. "You would be the first person to receive this specific combination of treatments." "Will it hurt?" Lily asked, a rare moment where the child beneath the precocious intellect showed through. Rosa took her daughter's hand, struggling to maintain composure. "There might be some discomfort, Mika. The treatments involve injections and some time in the hospital." Lily considered this, her brow furrowed in thought. "But without it, my condition will get worse. My hands will shake more. I might have more seizures and eventually—" She trailed off, aware enough of her diagnosis to understand its progression without needing to articulate it. "This is your decision, Lily," Ethan said softly. "Everyone will support whatever you choose." Lily looked at each of the adults in turn, then down at her hands, which trembled slightly even at rest now. "I want to try," she said finally. "Not just for me, but for other kids who have conditions like mine. Like in my books, case studies help doctors learn." The treatment protocol began the following week. 3 days each month, Lily would be admitted to the hospital for intensive enzyme infusions. Weekly genetic therapy injections would be administered at the Foundation's clinical facility. The key regimen would last initially for 6 months, with continuous evaluation of its effectiveness against the progression of her symptoms. What no one had fully prepared for was the physical toll the treatment would take. After her first round of infusions, Lily developed a high fever and intense muscle pain as her body reacted to the synthetic enzymes. Rosa stayed at her bedside through the night, applying cool compresses and whispering comforting words in Spanish. Ethan paced the corridor outside, tormented by the suffering they had unleashed in their attempt to help. "This is too much for her," he told Dr. Chen when she arrived for morning rounds. "There has to be a way to mitigate these reactions. We're adjusting the protocol based on these initial responses," Dr. Chen assured him. "This is why we start conservatively and monitor closely. Her body needs time to adapt." As the weeks progressed, Lily's reactions became less severe, but the treatment remained grueling. School became impossible on treatment days, and often for several days after. The Foundation arranged for home tutoring to prevent her from falling behind academically, though even this became challenging as fatigue and occasional cognitive fog became persistent side effects. Throughout it all, Lily maintained a spirit that humbled everyone around her. She insisted on documenting her own symptoms in a journal, creating detailed observations that sometimes revealed patterns the medical team had missed. When other children at the hospital expressed fear about their own treatments, she would visit them, explaining procedures in child-friendly terms that nurses claimed were more effective than their own. For Rosa, watching her daughter's suffering while being powerless to prevent it created a unique form of torment. She channeled her anguish into fierce advocacy, questioning doctors, researching side effects, and ensuring that every member of the medical team treated Lily as a person, not just a fascinating case study. "She's not your science experiment," she snapped at a visiting specialist who had discussed Lily's response markers in technical terms without acknowledging the child in the room. "She's a little girl who likes strawberry ice cream and gets scared but tries not to show it." Ethan witnessed this transformation in Rosa with profound admiration. The reserved, cautious woman who had been reluctant to accept his help had become a formidable force in her daughter's care, unintimidated by medical credentials or technical terminology. In the face of her daughter's illness, Rosa had discovered reserves of strength that surprised even herself. Their relationship evolved amid these pressures, deepening in ways neither had anticipated. Late nights in hospital rooms, shared fears, and small victories created an intimacy that transcended conventional romance. Ethan found himself relying on Rosa's steady presence as much as she relied on his resources and influence. They became partners in a battle neither had chosen, but both were determined to win. 3 months into the treatment protocol, Dr. Chen scheduled a comprehensive evaluation to assess Lily's response. The results were cautiously promising. While the tremors hadn't disappeared, they hadn't worsened, a significant victory against a typically progressive condition. Cognitive testing showed stable function, and there had been no further seizures since treatment began. "It's working," Ethan said, relief evident in his voice as they reviewed the results. "It's too soon to call it success," Dr. Chen cautioned, "but yes, we're seeing positive indicators. The real question is whether we can maintain this stability long-term." For the first time since Lily's diagnosis, they allowed themselves to hope, not for miracle cures, but for precious time and quality of life. That fragile hope, however, was about to face new challenges from unexpected directions. The first blow came from the financial sector. Sterling Technologies Board, concerned about the company's direction in Ethan's absence and the significant resources he was diverting to the foundation, initiated legal action to protect shareholder interests. They sought an injunction to prevent Ethan from misappropriating company research assets for personal projects. Specifically, the AI diagnostic technology that had been repurposed for analyzing Lily's genetic data. "They can't do this," Ethan fumed, pacing his foundation office after being served the legal papers. "The diagnostic system was my personal intellectual property. I licensed it to Sterling Technologies, but retained rights to medical applications." "Technically, yes," his attorney explained, "but they're arguing that your fiduciary duty to the company should have prioritized commercial applications over charitable ones. It's a stretch legally, but enough to create problems for the foundation in the short term." "I'll fight it," Ethan said without hesitation, "whatever it takes." Fighting means depositions, hearings, discovery, all taking time away from the foundation's work, his lawyer warned. They know that. This isn't about winning for them. It's about applying pressure. The pressure increased when several major investors in Sterling Technologies publicly questioned Ethan's judgment and emotional stability. Financial news programs ran segments analyzing the cautionary tale of a tech billionaire who had abandoned business principles for personal crusades. The narrative being shaped portrayed Ethan not as compassionate but as erratic and unreliable. Dr. Bennett seized this opportunity to renew his ethical challenges, now with the added argument that the experimental treatment's continuation was jeopardized by its founders' increasingly questionable decision-making. He filed a motion for the Ethics Committee to reconsider its approval in light of the unstable leadership and funding situation. The combined attacks created real operational challenges for the foundation. Several researchers, concerned about career implications of association with controversy, requested leaves of absence. Potential clinical partners became hesitant to commit. Even some donors began to waver, uncomfortable with the increasingly public disputes. Through it all, Ethan maintained his daily presence in Lily and Rosa's lives, determined that they would not feel the impact of these external battles. But Rosa, perceptive as always, noticed the strain beneath his carefully maintained composure. "You can't protect us from everything," she told him one evening after Lily had gone to bed. They sat on the small balcony of the apartment, a ritual that had become their private time to decompress. "I see the news. I hear things at the hospital. It's just business maneuvering," Ethan said dismissively. "Nothing for you to worry about." "It stopped being just business the moment it affected my daughter's treatment," Rosa countered. "Don't shut me out of this fight, Ethan. I deserve to know what we're facing." Her use of "we" wasn't lost on him. Despite her initial reservations about their worlds colliding, Rosa had fully committed to their shared battle. Ethan realized she deserved the complete truth, however difficult. The board is trying to block access to the diagnostic technology we use to monitor Lily's response to treatment, he explained. And Bennett is using the legal challenges to question the foundation's stability. If either succeeds, it could interrupt the treatment protocol. Rosa absorbed this with the quiet strength that had become her hallmark. Then we fight them, together. I never wanted to drag you and Lily into corporate politics and public scrutiny, Ethan said, regret evident in his voice. We were dragged into something much worse the day Lily was diagnosed, Rosa replied. Everything else is just noise. The next morning, Rosa asked to address the foundation's staff. Standing before researchers, clinicians, and administrators, many with multiple advanced degrees and prestigious credentials, the former cleaning woman spoke with quiet authority. Some of you may know me only as Lily's mother or Mr. Sterling's friend, she began, choosing her words carefully. But today I'm speaking as someone who has watched her child endure more in a few months than most people face in a lifetime. I know you're hearing worrying things about funding and legal challenges. I know some of you are wondering if you should distance yourselves from this work. She paused, making eye contact with key team members. Before you decide, I want you to come with me. She led them to the pediatric treatment room, where Lily was receiving her weekly therapy, engrossed in a book despite the IV in her arm. This is not just a case study or a career risk, Rosa continued. This is my daughter, and what you're doing here isn't just for her. It's for every child whose condition is too rare to attract big pharmaceutical investment, every family told to make their child comfortable because treatment isn't economically viable. If you walk away because powerful people are making threats, who will stand for these children? Her simple, heartfelt words accomplished what Ethan's resources and influence could not. The team recommitted, energized by the reminder of their work's human impact. Several researchers even volunteered salary reductions to extend the foundation's runway if funding became constrained. Ethan, watching from the doorway, felt a profound shift in his understanding of leadership. All his years building companies and directing thousands of employees had taught him less about inspiring others than Rosa had demonstrated. In 5 minutes of unvarnished truth, the legal battles intensified. Ethan spent hours in depositions, defending his decisions and resource allocations. The Foundation's attorneys filed emergency motions to protect the continuity of Lily's treatment regardless of the corporate disputes outcome. Dr. Bennett lobbied medical associations to formally denounce the Foundation's approach as reckless, experimentation driven by emotional, rather than scientific considerations. The mounting pressure coincided with a critical phase in Lily's treatment. The cumulative effects of the intensive protocol had left her immunocompromised, requiring isolation to prevent infection. Her characteristic resilience began to waver under the physical strain, leading to moments of tearful frustration that broke her mother's heart. During one particularly difficult hospital stay, Rosa found Lily crying silently in her bed late at night. "What's wrong, Mija?" she asked, though the question seemed absurd given everything her daughter was enduring. "I'm causing so much trouble," Lily whispered. "Everyone's fighting because of me." "No, Cielo," Rosa said firmly, gathering her daughter carefully in her arms. "The fighting is because grown-ups sometimes forget what matters. You haven't caused anything, but Ethan might lose his company, and the doctors are arguing, and you're so tired all the time." Rosa held her daughter's gaze. "Listen to me. Before you came into this world, I was just existing, working, sleeping, surviving. You gave my life purpose, and for Ethan, you saved him twice, once in that conference room and again by showing him what truly matters. Never think you're a burden. You're the reason we all fight so hard." Later, relating this conversation to Ethan, Rosa couldn't contain her own tears. "She thinks she's causing the problems. My baby is carrying guilt on top of everything else." Ethan's response surprised her. Instead of platitudes or reassurances, he asked, "What if we just stop fighting?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if I give them what they want? I could resign completely from Sterling Technologies, surrender my voting shares, let them have the company. I've got enough personal resources to fund the foundation for decades. We could move somewhere quieter, away from Bennett and his coalition. Focus completely on Lily's treatment without all these distractions." Rosa studied him thoughtfully. "You would do that?" "Walk away from everything you've built, In a heartbeat, Ethan said without hesitation. The company doesn't matter. The foundation's public standing doesn't matter. All that matters is Lily getting better and us, this family we're becoming. The word family hung in the air between them, unexamined but profoundly significant. For the first time, Ethan had articulated what had been gradually forming through shared struggles and quiet moments of connection. This isn't a decision we can make tonight, Rosa said finally. But I'm tired of wealthy men in boardrooms and doctors with agendas making choices that affect my daughter. Whatever we decide together, as a family. The acknowledgement of that word, the acceptance of what they had become to each other, created a moment of perfect understanding between them. Regardless of what challenges lay ahead, they would face them not as benefactor and recipient, not as billionaire and cleaning woman, but as partners in the truest sense. As they sat in companionable silence, Rosa's phone chimed with a message. She checked it, her expression changing to confusion and then concern. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "It's from my cousin in Los Angeles," Rosa said slowly. "She says a man was asking questions about me and Lily, about our relationship with you." "What kind of questions?" "About where we lived before. About Lily's father." Rosa's voice hardened. "Michael hasn't been in the picture since before Lily was born. He signed away his rights when she was an infant." Ethan felt a chill of foreboding. Could he have seen the news coverage? About the foundation? Maybe. Rosa's face reflected dawning realization. There have been articles mentioning Lily, the treatment, the resources being committed. "I'll have security increased immediately," Ethan said, already reaching for his phone. "And I'll have our legal team pull all the documentation regarding Michael's parental rights, just to be safe." Neither voiced their shared fear that after conquering medical committees, corporate boards, and public opinion, they might now face a challenge from the one person who could claim a biological right to determine Lily's care. A father who had abandoned her, but might now see value in reclaiming his role. The confrontation they feared arrived on a sunny Wednesday afternoon. Ethan was at the foundation reviewing new research data when his security team alerted him to a disturbance at Rosa and Lily's apartment. By the time he arrived, the scene was already tense. Michael Donovan stood in the living room, his posture aggressive despite the calm tone he was attempting to maintain. With his worn leather jacket and 3-day stubble, he looked like a man trying to project toughness to mask desperation. Rosa stood opposite him, positioned protectively between the visitor and Lily's bedroom door. "You have no right to be here," Rosa was saying as Ethan entered. "You signed the papers." So he walked away. "Things change," Michael replied, then noticed Ethan. His expression hardened. "So this is him? The billionaire playing daddy to my kid?" "Mr. Donovan," Ethan said evenly, "this isn't the way to handle whatever concerns you might have. Why don't we discuss this civilly without upsetting Lily?" "Lily's my daughter," Michael said, emphasizing the possessive. "Her welfare is my concern, not yours. And from what I've been reading, she's being used as some kind of medical guinea pig." Rosa's face flushed with anger. "Now you care about her welfare. Where were you for 7 years? Where were you when she was diagnosed? When she needed a father?" "I made mistakes," Michael admitted. "I was young, scared, not ready for responsibility. But that doesn't change biology. That's my blood in her veins. Blood doesn't make you a father," Rosa shot back. "Being there does. Holding her when she cries does. Learning the names of all her medications does." Michael's gaze shifted calculatingly between Rosa and Ethan. "I've talked to a lawyer. As her biological father, I have rights. Rights that weren't properly protected when I signed those papers. I could challenge the experimental treatments. I could even petition for partial custody." The naked opportunism in his voice made his true motives transparent. This wasn't about Lily's welfare. It was about leverage, about extracting value from a situation he had previously abandoned. "What do you want, Michael?" Ethan asked directly. "Let's stop pretending this is about reconnecting with a daughter you've ignored for 7 years. Michael smiled thinly. "I want what any father would want. Compensation for missing my daughter's life. A trust fund for her future. And maybe something to help me get back on my feet so I can be the dad she deserves." Before either Rosa or Ethan could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. I remember you. All three adults turned to see Lily standing in her bedroom doorway, pale but composed. Despite her physical fragility, her eyes were sharp with recognition. You came to our old apartment once, she continued, looking directly at Michael. When I was 4, you smelled like beer and asked Mama for money. You didn't even know my name. Michael had the grace to look uncomfortable. People change, kid. I've gotten myself together, and now I hear you're sick. I want to help. No, Lily said with surprising firmness. You want money. I may be a child, but I'm not stupid. Rosa moved to her daughter's side. Lily, you should be resting. This isn't for you to worry about. But it is, Lily insisted. It's my life. My treatment. She looked at Michael without fear. You're not my dad. Biology isn't what makes someone a father. The simplicity and clarity of her statement seemed to fill the room. Michael's confident posture faltered slightly in the face of this unexpected resistance from a child. Listen, kid, he began. No, you listen, Lily interrupted, her voice growing stronger. A real father stays when things are hard. A real father learns about Kaplan-Morrison syndrome and enzyme replacement therapy. A real father holds your hand during infusions and doesn't care if you throw up on his expensive shoes. Her gaze shifted meaningfully to Ethan, whose eyes had filled with unexpected tears at her words. Michael's expression hardened. Very touching. But the courts don't care about greeting card sentiments. They care about legal rights and biological connections. Then we'll see you in court, Rosa said with quiet determination, where we can discuss your history of abandonment, missed child support payments, and sudden interest that coincides perfectly with news coverage of Ethan's foundation. Security personnel appeared at the apartment door, summoned by a silent alarm Ethan had triggered upon arrival. Mr. Donovan was just leaving, Ethan told them calmly. As Michael was escorted out, he called back over his shoulder, "This isn't over." Not by a long shot. The threat hung in the air after his departure, casting a shadow over the sanctuary they had created. Lily, exhausted by the confrontation, allowed Rosa to lead her back to bed. Ethan remained in the living room, already calling his legal team to prepare for what was clearly coming. The next morning, as predicted, papers arrived. Michael Donovan had filed for an emergency hearing regarding Lily's medical care, claiming that, as her biological father, he had not consented to the experimental treatments and had concerns about their safety. Additionally, he petitioned to revisit the original termination of parental rights, claiming he had been coerced and wasn't properly represented. This is textbook, Ethan's family court attorney explained during an emergency meeting. He's trying to establish enough legal standing to force a settlement. He doesn't actually want custody or medical decision-making power. He wants to be bought off. So we buy him off, Ethan said pragmatically. Whatever it takes to make him go away permanently. No, Rosa interjected firmly. No payoffs. That would just confirm what he thinks. That Lily has a price tag now because of her connection to you. I won't have my daughter learn that lesson. The attorney looked between them. Without a settlement, we're looking at court hearings, possibly lengthy ones. The family court system moves slowly, and judges tend to favor biological connections, unless there's overwhelming evidence of unfitness. Which there is, Rosa insisted. 7 years of documented absence, signed termination papers, not a single birthday card or child support payment. Those will help our case, the attorney agreed. But be prepared for this to get messy. He'll claim he's changed, that he wasn't given proper chance to maintain a relationship, that he's reformed and deserves another chance. Ethan listened to the legal strategies with growing frustration. The system seemed designed to prolong exactly the kind of uncertainty that Lily didn't need during her treatment. Every day spent fighting this battle was a day distracted from her care and recovery. As they left the attorney's office, Rosa was uncharacteristically quiet. In the car, she finally spoke. I should have known this would happen. The moment our lives intersected with wealth and public attention, the vultures would circle. This isn't your fault, Ethan assured her, and we'll handle it together. Rosa looked out the window, her reflection in the glass revealing worry lines that had deepened over recent months. Sometimes I wonder if Lily and I would have been better off staying invisible. No foundation, no experimental treatments, no public scrutiny. Just the two of us facing whatever came on our own terms. Do you really believe that? Ethan asked softly. After a long pause, she shook her head. No, the foundation is Lily's best hope. And you, she turned to meet his gaze. You've become essential to both of us in ways I never expected. That evening, they gathered in Lily's room for their nightly ritual of reading together. Despite the looming legal battle and the continuing medical challenges, these moments of normalcy had become sacred. Tonight, however, Lily had questions that couldn't be avoided. Is that man really going to take me away? She asked directly, her small face serious in the warm lamplight. No, Mika, Rosa assured her. He has no power to do that. But he's trying to stop my treatments, Lily persisted. I heard you talking. Ethan and Rosa exchanged glances, silently debating how much to share. Finally, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. Lily, sometimes adults fight over what they think is best, or over what they want. But I promise you, your mom and I won't let anything interrupt your care. I know what he really wants, Lily said with uncomfortable perceptiveness. Money. Because people think you have endless money. Ethan, that's part of it, Ethan acknowledged, never one to patronize her intelligence. I've been thinking, Lily continued, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. Maybe I should talk to the judge myself. I may be 7, but I know who has been there for me and who hasn't. I know who loves me and who just wants to use me. Rosa began to object, protective instincts flaring. Lily, you don't need to involve yourself in these adult problems. But they're not just adult problems, Mama, Lily interrupted gently. They're my problems too. My life, my treatment, my family. She looked between Rosa and Ethan. My real family. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. In preparation, Ethan's legal team gathered extensive documentation, medical records demonstrating the careful protocols surrounding Lily's treatment, expert testimonials regarding the ethical oversight, and comprehensive evidence of Michael Donovan's absence from Lily's life. Rosa contributed a meticulous record she had maintained of every attempt to involve Michael over the years, unanswered letters, returned birthday cards, documented phone calls that went unreturned. Her natural organizational abilities, previously channeled into managing cleaning schedules and Lily's medical appointments, now served to build an airtight case against Michael's sudden claims of parental concern. The night before the hearing, Ethan found himself unable to sleep. The stakes felt impossibly high. While his attorneys were confident, the family court system was unpredictable, with judges who sometimes favored biological connections over practical realities. The thought of Lily's treatment being interrupted, or her life being further disrupted by legal proceedings, filled him with cold dread. Around midnight, he heard a soft knock at his bedroom door. Rosa stood in the hallway, similarly sleepless in a simple robe over pajamas. I can't stop thinking, she admitted as he invited her in. About tomorrow. About what might happen. We have the strongest possible case, Ethan assured her, though his own anxiety belied his confident words. Rosa sat on the edge of the bed, her normally perfect posture giving way to exhaustion. It's not just the hearing. It's everything. The treatments that make her so sick. The foundation battles. And now this. Sometimes I wonder how much more any of us can take. Without thinking, Ethan took her hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever challenges come next, we'll face them together. I'm not going anywhere, Rosa, not ever. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. Why? Why would someone like you tie yourself to this much complication, this much pain? You could have walked away at any point. Most men would have. Because I love you, Ethan said simply, the words emerging with a certainty that surprised even him. Both of you. You've become my family. You're the only real family I've ever known. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. I've been afraid to trust this, to believe it could be real, that someone like you could love someone like me, not just Lily with her brilliant mind, but me, a woman who cleaned your offices. You've never been just anything, Ethan said, gently touching her cheek. You're the strongest, most devoted person I've ever known. How could I not love you? In the quiet of the night, with the world and its challenges temporarily held at bay, they found comfort in each other's arms, not in passion but in the simple human need for connection in the face of uncertainty. The family court was smaller than Ethan had imagined, the atmosphere less formal than corporate litigation, but weighted with more human consequence. Judge Sandra Michaels, a veteran of the family court system with 20 years on the bench, presided with a no-nonsense efficiency that suggested she had seen every possible maneuver and manipulation. Michael Donovan had dressed for the occasion in an ill-fitting suit that couldn't quite conceal his opportunistic nature. His attorney, clearly working on contingency with hopes of a substantial settlement, presented arguments about a father's rights, about mistakes made in youth, about the natural biological bond that deserved recognition regardless of past failures. Ethan's legal team countered with methodical documentation of Michael's absence, the terminated parental rights, and most importantly, the medical necessity of continuing Lily's current treatment without interruption. Medical experts testified to the careful ethical oversight, the promising preliminary results, and the dangers of disrupting the protocol. Throughout the proceedings, Lily sat between Rosa and Ethan, remarkably composed, despite the clinical discussion of her condition and care. She listened attentively as adults argued about her future, occasionally whispering questions that demonstrated her understanding of both the legal and medical aspects being debated. After several hours of testimony, Judge Michaels addressed the courtroom. "Before I make my ruling, I understand that Lily Martinez has requested to speak. While this is unusual given her age, I've reviewed the evaluations of her cognitive maturity and find her capable of expressing relevant views." She looked directly at Lily. "Would you still like to address the court, young lady?" Lily nodded and stood, smoothing her simple blue dress with hands that trembled slightly from her condition rather than nerves. Rosa had braided her hair that morning, and she looked both vulnerable and determined as she faced the judge. "Your Honor," she began in a clear voice that carried through the courtroom, "I know I'm only 7, but I understand what's happening here today. This man," she gestured toward Michael without looking at him, "is not my father in any way that matters. He never taught me to read or helped me with homework. He wasn't there when I was diagnosed or when I started treatments that make me really sick sometimes." She paused, gathering her thoughts with remarkable poise. "My real family is my mum, who works harder than anyone I know, and Ethan, who changed his whole life to help me get better. They're the ones who stay up all night when I have fevers from my medicine. They're the ones who know all my doctors' names and what all my medications do." Lily turned slightly to look directly at Michael for the first time. "You can't just decide to be a father when it might get you money. Being a parent means being there when everything falls apart. It means holding someone's hand even when they throw up on your shoes. It means loving them enough to put them before yourself." She turned back to the judge. "I need to continue my treatments without interruption. The doctors say timing is really important, and I need to do it with the people who have been there every step of the way. Please don't let this man who doesn't even know what medicines I take make decisions about my care just because we share DNA." A profound silence followed her words. Even Michael's attorney seemed momentarily lost for a rebuttal. Judge Michaels studied Lily with undisguised respect before addressing the courtroom again. "I've heard enough. This court will take a 30-minute recess before delivering its ruling." The half hour of waiting felt interminable. Rosa held Lily close, whispering praise for her courage. Ethan maintained a protective presence beside them, fielding concerned glances from his legal team who, despite their confidence in the case, knew that family court could be unpredictable. When Judge Michaels returned, her expression was resolute. "In the matter of parental rights and medical decision-making authority for Lily Martinez, this court finds as follows." She looked directly at Michael. "Mr. Donovan, your petition to reinstate parental rights is denied. Your voluntary termination 7 years ago, followed by consistent absence from the child's life, established a pattern that cannot be credibly attributed to misunderstanding or lack of representation." She turned to address Rosa and Ethan. "Ms. Martinez, your sole legal and physical custody is affirmed. The court finds that the medical protocol currently administered through the Lilly Foundation meets all ethical requirements and may continue without interruption." Relief washed over them in palpable waves. But Judge Michaels wasn't finished. "Furthermore," she continued, "I'm taking the unusual step of granting Mr. Sterling's petition for legal status as Lily's medical conservator. This will allow him to participate officially in medical decisions alongside Ms. Martinez, given his significant involvement in her care." The judge's gaze softened slightly as she addressed Lily directly. "A young lady, this court has rarely encountered a child with your extraordinary maturity and clarity. Your voice has been heard and respected in these proceedings." As they left the courthouse, Michael attempted one final confrontation, approaching them on the steps with barely contained anger. "This isn't over. There are other courts, other ways to establish my rights." "It is over, Michael," Rosa interrupted with quiet finality. "Judge Michaels was very clear. And if you continue to harass us, we'll pursue a restraining order." He stared at them, the determined mother, the protective billionaire, and the remarkably composed child between them. And something in his expression shifted, as if he finally recognized the futility of his efforts against the formidable unit they had become. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his receding figure a visual representation of the threat that had temporarily loomed over their fragile family. That evening, celebration mingled with exhaustion as they returned to Rosa's apartment. Lily, drained by the emotional day, fell asleep early, leaving Rosa and Ethan alone on the small balcony that had become their nightly retreat. "I've been thinking," Ethan said after a comfortable silence, "about what happens next, about making permanent what Judge Michaels recognized today." Rosa looked at him questioningly. "I'd like to formally adopt Lily," he continued, "with your permission, of course, to become her legal father in every sense that matters." Rosa's eyes widened slightly. "That's a significant step." "It is, Ethan." "Agreed, but it's one I want to take." Today in that courtroom, watching Lily stand up for what family really means, it clarified everything for me. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "And there's something else I want to ask, something I've been thinking about for months now." Rosa's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a ring, not the ostentatious diamond one might expect from a billionaire, but a simple platinum band with a subtle pattern etched into its surface. "This was made from the nameplate that used to hang outside my office," Ethan explained. "I had it melted down and reformed, a symbol of how meeting you and Lily transformed everything about my life, took what was cold and corporate, and made it into something meaningful." He took her hand gently. "Rosa Martinez, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife, of making official what we've already become, a family?" Tears filled Rosa's eyes, but they were different from the tears of worry and fear that had dominated recent months. "Are you sure? Your world is so different from mine. The people in your life, your colleagues, your investors, none of them matter," Ethan interrupted gently. "The only opinions I care about are yours and Lily's. The rest of the world can adjust or not. It makes no difference to me." Rosa looked at the ring, this perfect symbol of transformation, and then at the man who had entered their lives in the most unexpected, that way and become essential to their existence. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to being your wife. Yes to letting you be Lily's father. Yes to facing whatever comes next together." As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, the path ahead remained challenging. Lily's treatment would continue with its physical tolls and uncertain outcomes. The foundation would face ongoing opposition from established medical interests. The business world would continue to question Ethan's priorities, but in that moment, none of those challenges seemed insurmountable. They had found in each other the strength that comes from chosen family, from bonds forged not through obligation or biology, but through love expressed in daily acts of presence and care. 5 years later, the grounds of the Helios Medical Village sprawled across 30 acres of repurposed industrial land in South San Francisco. What had once been abandoned warehouses and manufacturing facilities had been transformed into a comprehensive medical campus, dedicated to children with rare diseases and their families. The central treatment facility featured state-of-the-art diagnostic and therapeutic capabilities, but it was the surrounding structures that made the village unique. Comfortable residential units for families during extended treatment periods, educational facilities for patients and siblings, recreational spaces designed to accommodate children with varying physical limitations, and comprehensive support services addressing everything from nutritional needs to legal advocacy. In his office overlooking the campus, Ethan Sterling reviewed the quarterly outcomes report with quiet satisfaction. Over 300 children had received treatment through the village's programs in the past year alone. The experimental protocol that had begun with Lily had evolved into standardized therapies for dozens of related conditions. The AI diagnostic platform had successfully identified rare disorders in early stages, dramatically improving outcomes through prompt intervention. A knock at the door interrupted his review. "They're ready for you in the auditorium," Margot reminded him. Though still technically his assistant, her role had evolved to become the village's chief operations officer, applying her organizational genius to the complex logistics of the expanding campus. "Is everyone here?" Ethan asked, straightening his tie, a concession to the formality of the occasion. "The entire International Medical Ethics Committee arrived an hour ago," Margot confirmed. "Dr. Bennett is with them." Ethan nodded, unsurprised. Lawrence Bennett had maintained his opposition to the Helios initiative for years, though his tactics had evolved from outright antagonism to more subtle resistance through regulatory channels. His appointment to the International Committee overseeing experimental treatments had been a calculated move to maintain scrutiny over the village's operations. "And the family?" Ethan asked. Margot's expression softened. "Rosa's helping Lily prepare her presentation. They're already backstage." The annual review by the International Committee was crucial for maintaining the village's certifications and permissions for its more innovative treatments. This year's evaluation carried particular significance as they sought approval for expanding their protocols to international satellite facilities. As Ethan made his way across the campus, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The early years had been brutal. Months of watching Lily endure treatments that often seemed worse than the disease itself. Periods of apparent improvement followed by frightening setbacks. Nights spent in hospital rooms fearing the worst while hoping for miracles. Through it all, their improvised family had solidified into something unbreakable. The wedding had been simple, held in Lily's hospital room during a stable period in her treatment, with Dr. Chen as witness and a handful of medical staff in attendance. The adoption had followed, legally confirming what had already become emotional reality. Ethan was Lily's father in every way that mattered. The foundation had evolved alongside their family, growing from a single focused research initiative into the comprehensive Helios Medical Village. Each expansion had been inspired by practical needs they'd encountered during Lily's treatment: the exhaustion of commuting from home to hospital, the educational disruptions, the isolation from peers, the financial devastation many families faced even with insurance. Ethan entered the auditorium through a side door, wanting a moment to observe before being noticed. The space was filled with medical professionals, researchers, ethics committee members, and representatives from health organizations worldwide. At the podium, Dr. Chen was delivering preliminary remarks about the village's integrated approach to rare disease management. "Our philosophy is simple," she was saying. "Treat the whole child and the whole family, not just the disease. Medical interventions alone aren't enough when we're asking families to restructure their entire lives around complex treatment protocols." Ethan spotted Rosa in the front row, her natural elegance enhanced by the confidence she'd developed as the village's director of family services. The former cleaning woman now supervised a department of 50 professionals, providing comprehensive support to patient families, bringing her unique perspective as both a parent and a medical caregiver to program development. And beside her sat 12-year-old Lily, still small for her age due to the lasting effects of her condition, but vibrant and alert in ways that had once seemed impossible. Her hair, grown back after the treatments that had once caused it to fall out, was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She reviewed notes on a tablet, occasionally looking up to smile encouragingly at Dr. Chen. The sight of his daughter, healthy, engaged, alive, still struck Ethan with waves of gratitude that sometimes threatened to overwhelm him. The experimental protocol had eventually succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. While Lily would always have certain limitations and require maintenance therapy, the progressive deterioration had been halted and many symptoms reversed. She attended the village's specialized school, excelling academically despite frequent absences for her continuing role in research. Dr. Chen concluded her introduction. "And now, to present the patient outcomes portion of our review, I'm pleased to introduce someone uniquely qualified to speak to both the medical and personal dimensions of our work. Ladies and gentlemen, Lily Sterling Martinez. A murmur of interest ran through the audience as Lily approached the podium. Though they had heard about the remarkable child at the heart of the Helios story, many were seeing her in person for the first time. Adjusting the microphone to her height, still a necessity, she surveyed the crowd with composure that belied her years. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear and confident. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with Kaplan-Morrison syndrome. At that time, the prognosis was severe neurological deterioration with limited life expectancy. Today, I stand before you as both a patient in sustained remission and a participant in ongoing research to extend similar outcomes to others. She proceeded to present detailed outcome data with the precision of a seasoned researcher, navigating complex medical terminology with remarkable ease. The audience's initial indulgent smiles gave way to genuine engagement as they recognized they were hearing from a legitimate scientific mind, regardless of its young vessel. While statistical outcomes are important, Lily continued after completing the data presentation, they don't capture the human reality of rare disease treatment. With the committee's permission, I'd like to introduce some of my fellow patients who represent the true measure of the village's impact. At her signal, a side door opened. A group of children of various ages entered, some walking independently, others using mobility aids, a few in wheelchairs. Each wore a t-shirt bearing the name of their rare condition across the front, and on the back the words, "More than my diagnosis," in bold letters. Mason Williams, age 8, Hurler. Syndrome, Lily introduced as a small boy stepped forward. Diagnosed at age 3, given a life expectancy of 10 years, now stabilized through enzyme replacement therapy developed through our collaborative research with Boston Children's Hospital. One by one, she introduced the children, each representing a condition that had once been considered untreatable, but now had protocols developed through the village's work. The committee members, many of whom had spent careers reviewing clinical data in sterile conference rooms, found themselves confronted with the living embodiment of statistical success. Children laughing, learning, playing, living. These are not just medical victories, Lily concluded as the children returned to their families. These are lives reclaimed. Brothers who can play together, students who can return to school, daughters who can dance at their parents' weddings. She smiled at Ethan and Rosa in the audience. I should know. As applause filled the auditorium, Ethan noticed Dr. Bennett's reaction. The man who had once been their most vocal opponent sat motionless, his expression unreadable as he watched Lily field questions from committee members with remarkable sophistication. The formal presentations continued throughout the morning, with various department heads detailing the village's operations, research protocols, and future initiatives. By lunch break, the mood among the committee members was noticeably positive, with many engaging village staff in detailed discussions about potentially implementing similar models in their home countries. During the lunch reception, Ethan found himself face-to-face with Dr. Bennett for the first time in several years. The older physician had aged visibly, the silver in his hair now completely white, deep lines etched around his eyes. Impressive operation you've built here. Sterling, Bennett said after an awkward moment, far more comprehensive than I would have anticipated. Thank you, Ethan replied neutrally, unsure if this was the beginning of another critique. Bennett seemed to struggle with his next words. Your daughter is remarkable. Her grasp of the medical concepts, her ability to communicate them. He shook his head slightly. Extraordinary. She is, Ethan agreed, parental pride evident despite his caution. I was wrong, Bennett said suddenly, the words appearing to surprise even himself. Not about everything. There were legitimate concerns about process and precedent. But about your motivations, your commitment. I assumed this was, he gestured vaguely, a billionaire's vanity project. A temporary diversion that would fade when the challenges mounted or the novelty wore off. Ethan studied the man who had caused them so much difficulty in the early days. It was never about novelty. It was about family. About love. Bennett nodded slowly. I see that now. And the results speak for themselves. He hesitated before continuing. The committee's preliminary assessment is overwhelmingly positive. Your international expansion will be approved. Won't be opposing it." Before Ethan could respond, they were interrupted by a small commotion nearby. A boy of about 10 had approached Lily, who was speaking with committee members. He looked nervous but determined. "You're Lily Sterling Martinez, right?" they overheard him ask. "The girl they named the enzyme treatment after?" Lily smiled warmly. "That's me, though I keep telling them they should name things after the scientists who do the actual work. I just started the LSM protocol last month," the boy said, pulling up his sleeve to show an infusion port similar to the one Lily had worn for years. "My doctor said you were the first person to ever try it." "I was," Lily confirmed. "It's tough at first, but it gets easier. The side effects usually settle down after the third treatment. Did you feel scared?" the boy asked, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Lily considered this seriously. Terrified sometimes, but it helps to understand what's happening, to know why you feel bad sometimes after treatments, and to remember that feeling bad temporarily is part of getting better permanently. "My mom and dad are scared all the time," the boy confided. "They try not to show it, but I can tell." "Mine too," Lily said, gesturing toward where Rosa and Ethan stood. "Parents are like that, but you know what helps them? When they see us being brave. Not pretending everything's fine, but facing the hard stuff one day at a time." The boy nodded, seeming to absorb this wisdom. Will you be at the kids' group later? My parents said there's a special program for patients." "I help run it," Lily confirmed. "We've got games and projects planned. Nothing boring or babyish, I promise." As the boy returned to his parents, Ethan felt Rosa's hand slip into his. She had approached quietly during the exchange, and her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she watched their daughter's natural empathy in action. "She's going to change the world," Rosa said softly. "Not just through her medical work, but through her heart." The afternoon session focused on the village's future plans, including the development of regional satellite facilities in partnership with established medical centers worldwide. The most ambitious proposal involved creating standardized protocols that could be implemented in resource-limited settings, bringing advanced diagnostics and treatments to children regardless of geography or economics. As executive director, Ethan delivered the vision statement, but he was no longer the driving force behind the village's evolution. That role had gradually shifted to a leadership team that included Rosa, Dr. Chen, and increasingly Lily herself, whose unique perspective as both patient and emerging researcher shaped the organization's priorities. When the formal presentations concluded, the committee chair announced that they would deliver their final assessment the following morning. The assembled staff dispersed to their various duties, while Ethan, Rosa, and Lily returned to their home, a modest house within walking distance of the village, chosen specifically for its normalcy rather than ostentation. "Do you think they'll approve everything?" Lily asked over dinner, her fork pushing pasta around her plate with the slight tremor that remained as a permanent reminder of her condition. "The international partnerships seemed well received," Ethan observed. "Even Dr. Bennett appeared supportive." "I saw you talking with him," Rosa noted. "That seemed civilized." Ethan smiled slightly. "He actually admitted he was wrong about us, at least partially." "People can change," Lily said thoughtfully, "like Mason's mom. Remember how angry she was when he was first diagnosed? Now she's one of our best parent advocates." Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan and Rosa sat in their customary spots on the back porch, a tradition maintained from their earliest days together. Though they could have afforded any home imaginable, they had chosen to live modestly, redirecting Ethan's personal fortune primarily toward expanding the village's reach. "I received an interesting call today," Rosa said, curled comfortably against Ethan's side, "from that family in Argentina, with the twins who both have the enzyme deficiency. They're arriving next week for evaluation." "That's wonderful," Ethan replied. "The new protocol should be perfectly suited for their condition." "There's more," Rosa continued. "The local doctors identified their condition using our remote diagnostic platform, the one that's based on the original Helios AI system." Ethan nodded, understanding the significance. What had begun as a desperate attempt to save one child had evolved into tools and treatments helping children worldwide. The personal had become universal without losing its human center. "I've been thinking about something Lily said earlier," Rosa mused. "To that boy with the infusion port, about facing the hard stuff one day at a time. It struck me that's exactly what we've done these past 5 years. She gets her wisdom from her mother, Ethan said, kissing the top of Rosa's head. Rosa smiled. And her stubbornness from her father. The comfortable silence that followed reflected the ease of a relationship that had weathered extraordinary challenges. From their unlikely beginning, a billionaire saved by a cleaning woman's daughter, they had forged something neither could have imagined, a family defined not by convention, but by choice, commitment and unwavering presence through life's hardest moments. The following morning brought the committee's formal assessment. As expected, they granted full approval for the village's international expansion, with Dr. Bennett himself praising the extraordinary commitment to ethical standards and patient-centered care that characterized the operation. As the committee members departed, Lily approached Ethan and Rosa with unusual hesitation in her expression. "I need to tell you something," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "I've been working on an application for the Young Medical Researchers program at Johns Hopkins for next summer." Rosa and Ethan exchanged glances of surprise. Their daughter had always been academically gifted, but this prestigious program typically accepted only high school students with exceptional scientific aptitude. "That's a very competitive program," Ethan said carefully. "I know," Lily acknowledged. "But Dr. Chen helped me with the application. She thinks my research on patient experience as a factor in treatment compliance might be compelling enough to overcome the age restrictions." "Is this something you really want?" Rosa asked, studying her daughter's expression. Lily nodded, her eyes bright with purpose. "I want to help develop the next generation of treatments, not just for Kaplan-Morrison, but for all the conditions we haven't solved yet. There are still so many kids without options." In that moment, Ethan saw clearly the trajectory that had begun 5 years earlier when a small girl had taken command in a room full of paralyzed billionaires. The medical knowledge she had absorbed as a curious child, the personal experience of serious illness, and the unique perspective of growing up within a medical research environment had shaped her into something extraordinary, a bridge between patient experience and scientific innovation. "Then we'll support you completely," he promised. "Whatever you need." 2 months later, a letter arrived bearing the Johns Hopkins insignia. Lily insisted on opening it privately in her room, emerging sometime later with reddened eyes but a composed expression. "I got in," she announced simply. "Provisional acceptance, contingent on maintaining my health, markers, and completing some prerequisite coursework." The celebration that followed included not just their immediate family but the extended one they had created, Dr. Chen and key village staff, patients who had become friends, researchers who had mentored Lily, and even some committee members who had remained in contact. In many ways, it was a gathering that represented the essence of what they had built, a community united by common purpose rather than conventional connections. As guests mingled throughout their home, Ethan found himself momentarily alone in the kitchen, reflecting on the improbable journey from that conference room floor to this moment of quiet triumph. Rosa joined him, her intuition for his moods as precise as ever. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, slipping her arm around his waist. "I was just thinking about how it all began," Ethan replied. "How close I came to missing all of this. If I hadn't collapsed that day, if Lily hadn't been there, if I hadn't broken the rules by bringing her to work," Rosa added with a smile. "Sometimes the best things in life start with breaking the rules," Ethan observed, pulling her closer. From the living room came the sound of Lily's voice, animated as she described her research plans to an attentive Dr. Bennett, whose early opposition had gradually transformed into reluctant respect and eventually genuine admiration for the family's accomplishments. "We should rejoin the party," Rosa suggested, though she made no immediate move to leave the quiet of the kitchen. "In a minute," Ethan said, savoring the moment of reflection. "I just want to remember this feeling. Where we started, where we are now, how extraordinarily lucky I am." Rosa looked up at him with the directness that had first captured his attention years ago. "Not luck," she corrected gently. "Love. It was love that saved you in that conference room. Lily's compassion for a stranger in distress. Love that kept us fighting through the treatments and setbacks. Love that built the village and everything it represents. As they rejoined their guests, Ethan watched Lily move through the room with a quiet confidence born of overcoming extraordinary challenges. She was still small for her age, still bore the physical markers of her condition in subtle tremors and occasional fatigue, but these limitations had shaped rather than defined her. In her earnest interactions with younger patients, her thoughtful discussions with medical professionals, and her gentle teasing of her parents, he saw the emergence of a remarkable young woman who embodied the very purpose the village existed to serve, not just survival, but thriving. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Lily found a quiet moment with both her parents on the back porch that had witnessed so many of their family's pivotal conversations. "I've been thinking about something," she said, her expression contemplative in the soft outdoor lighting, "about what to say in my personal statement for the program. They want to know what inspired my interest in medicine." "That's easy," Ethan smiled. "You've been fascinated by medicine since before I met you." Lily nodded. "But it's different now. Before it was just interesting, like solving puzzles. Now it's personal. I understand what it means when treatments fail, or when they succeed but leave lasting effects. I know what it feels like to be the subject of medical discussions, not just the reader of medical books." Rosa reached for her daughter's hand. "That perspective will make you a better researcher, Miha. A better doctor someday if that's what you choose." "I think it will be," Lily said with quiet certainty. "But not just any doctor. I want to specialize in rare pediatric conditions. To help build a system where no child is told there's nothing we can do just because their disease isn't common enough to attract research dollars." Her words echoed the mission that had guided their family's transformation and the village's development. What had begun as a desperate attempt to save one beloved child had evolved into a vision for transforming pediatric medicine for all children facing rare diseases. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "when people ask me about my greatest achievement, they expect me to talk about Sterling Technologies or the Helios system, or even the village. But none of those are the real answer." "What is?" Lily asked curiously. Ethan looked between his wife and daughter, the cleaning woman and the precocious child who had saved him in every way a person can be saved. "This our family. The love we've built together. Everything else flows from that." As the three of them sat together under the stars, their entwined hands formed a circle of connection that represented everything the medical village strived to create for others. Not just treatment, but belonging. Not just survival, but purpose. Not just care, but love. In the years to come, the Sterling Martinez family would face new challenges. Lily's medical journey would include setbacks alongside victories. The village would encounter resistance as it expanded internationally. But the foundation they had built, both the medical campus and the family unit, would stand firm against whatever storms might come.